So we're in divine order. Divine order is now established. Together? Divine order is now established. Now, when you say that, how do you think that divine order shows up? I used to think that what would happen is I would make divine order happen with my words. Divine order is now established, so I'm making divine order happen with my words. But now I understand it differently. Divine order already is. Divine order is already established. I'm getting into alignment with it. And then I have the eyes to see it. And I'll never forget, Gail Brown used to say, Devorn Eider is now established when things were wonky. When things were just a little bit weird and you're judging by appearances and you're seeing things out of order, she'd say, Devorn Eider is now established. Together? Devorn Eider is now established. A friend of mine used to call it divine disorder, but it's understanding that when things don't look like they're in order, we're just judging it incorrectly. And we're seeing things according to this out here rather than this in here, which is always in divine order. We just have to let it outform. Divine order is already established. Together? Divine order is already established. I got to experience that so beautifully through my mom's passing a couple of weeks ago. You know, it was such a divinely ordered experience, but I didn't realize it until I kind of looked into it and thought back on it. When I got the phone call on a Saturday morning that my mom was going into hospice care, and they said I needed to come as soon as possible. And as far as the flights that were available, it was Monday morning, and I got there Monday around noon, and I got to be with my mom in her hospital bed. What I didn't know is that the condition she had, people have a 90% chance of passing within 24 hours. Well, by then it had been, 2.5 days. But the people who last the first 24 hours, 80% of them go in the next 48 hours, and she was still there. And they said to me, she was lucid, and she was in good spirits and everything, and she wasn't in pain. She had been earlier. But they said she'll never leave her bed. We do not expect it. In fact, you could tell that although they were talking hospice care, they didn't expect her to leave the hospital. But so interesting thing happened. She just rallied, and she would just pray. Divine order is established in this, Greg. Divine order is established in this. You know, I didn't have a conversation with her over the last 5 years where she didn't say divine order is now established. It was her mantra. She would meditate on it every morning. She would pray it every night. And she made an impact on the people around her because of her prayer of divine order. You know, as she made her transition, as she was going through this experience, one by one, at least 20 people who were workers at the place where she lived came up to my sister and me and said, "She's the most amazing person we've ever met. She has made an impact on my life that almost nobody else has." I mean, things that were just stunning. And I asked my sister about it. Did you see this coming? And she said, no, but I'll tell you what I think happened. She said when she moved there 4 years ago, she kind of was not happy, not too easy to deal with. And I saw the way she interacted with the staff, and I said, "Mom, these people are all getting paid very, very little to just wait on you and take care of you." And I gave her some encouragement on how she could lift them up. And apparently she took it to heart, because I had them one after another say this: "Nobody has ever, and there is nobody else in this building, treat me like this." She's always lifting me up. She's always saying this divine order to me. And she changed their experience of their jobs. She changed their experience of their lives. Many of them showed up for her memorial service. Well, they sent her home with a walker because she was walking, and they sent her hospital bed, but she wanted to be in her bed. She wanted her mattress. And it was a comfortable mattress, I can tell you, because I got to sleep in the hospital bed next to it. And she slept in that mattress, and we had our prayer time. We had a wonderful time. And that night, she got up and she was walking around without the walker. She was rallying, and she seemed to be doing real well. She got her appetite back. And the next morning, I got up. She was facing the window, and I went out and did some errands. Came back an hour later. She was facing the other way. So I went to eat breakfast, and they came and they got me. Apparently, during that time that I was gone is when she left, which they do that, don't they? People who pass on often, they because of the ties. You know, it's really because of the ties. It's easier for them to make an exit without anybody holding on to them. Although I had done the 7 steps and I had done the release work, it just was easier for her. So, divine order. And it was such a beautiful experience because she chose to have her transition the week of the Apollo splashdown, Apollo 13, and she'd been a docent for 18 years on the USS Hornet, which picked him up. In fact, the room that the astronauts went to, the first room after they were taken out of the capsule, they had to redecorate it in the 1969 time, and so they put my bedroom furniture in it. My mom donated my old TV. The TV I actually watched the moon splash down on. It was in that room, and it was such a part. She was such a part of that. And they had all these beautiful things, exhibits and displays. It was a beautiful experience, and they came and people talked about what a difference she made. You know, she was 90 years old and she was leading people up 5 stories on ladders on this aircraft carrier, the USS Hornet. And she had only 3 years before, she passed just shy of her 96th birthday. She had just retired from her being a docent. But it was such a beautiful, full experience and existence in her life. And why did she have such a beautiful transition? And it was lovely. It was just, she was just happy, and she was at peace, and she gave us a gift through it because she did her spiritual practices on a daily basis. The divine order is always there, but we've got to do something to align with it. What are you doing on a daily basis to keep, well, in Jesus' parable of the foolish and wise young women, keep your lamps trimmed and burning? What does that mean? That means keeping your light up, keeping yourself prepared and ready, keeping your essence aligned on a daily basis, taking your daily word like she would every morning, and then taking it a little deeper. They had meditation 2-3 times a week, group meditation, and she said no more than 6 people would ever show up out of the 125 in the building, but she was always there. She was always involved in this spiritual life. And I've shared before what Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the founder of the hospice movement, said. She said that she had 3 kinds of people of the thousands that she sat with at the end of the physical life. She said there were the people who, like my mom, internalized their experience of spirituality in their practices and made it a part of their life so that it wasn't just something they believed in out there. It wasn't a divine order that was out there. It was within them. And those people, she said, would have a very beautiful transition, very harmonious. It was a lovely experience. The second best people to deal with were atheists. And the reason why is because they made peace with what they believed. And so they weren't in any kind of ambiguous conflict. But the people who had a tough time at the end of life were the traditionally religious people who, despite an altar call or profession of some kind of faith, it was out there. It was something that was imposed on them from the outside, some kind of outer belief system, instead of a religious belief system, instead of an internal spiritual practice. So what are you doing to bring an experience of the implicate inner order of life into your consciousness and to live from it? Divine order is now established. Whatever's going on in your life, whether you're looking for an apartment like I've been looking up in Tarpon Springs, it's been a few days, or you're looking for a job, or you're looking for something to work out in your consciousness, something that you would like to see manifest in your experience, there is a divine order that already exists. And once you shift your mind from, wow, I got to make that divine order happen, to it's already there, And what I need to do is to get into alignment with it. And how do you do that? Well, you do it by letting go of judgment. Letting go of judgment. I want to thank Charlene for reminding me of the part of my talk that I left out at 9:30. She said, that reminds me of what Jesus said about judgment. And what did he say about judgment? Do not judge by appearances, judge right judgment. So we go around in our lives looking at the appearances and living from outside in. And the world that we see today, it's all about those kinds of false values, materialism, the idea that it's about money, it's about status, it's about power, it's about possessions, it's about things. But even a Disney movie teaches you that's not true. Everybody somewhere inside knows that that's not true, but people still live from that false ideal. And it's ours to remember what the real ideal is, which is that you live from within out, that your values are from within out. I spoke about a week and a half ago at the United Foundation for Better Living convention down in Miami. That is Johnny Coleman's group that she founded out of unity and created her own denomination. And in it, I shared, and I could tell people were troubled with it, that this out here is not what's real. It's this in here that's what's real. But a lot of people had some questions. Well, are you telling me not to take action? In this world that we see today, it's crying out for me to take action and to make a difference and to make a change out here. And I said, Gandhi is the greatest example of this. Gandhi brought the British Empire to its knees. The British Empire was the greatest empire in the history of the world. It spanned the globe. But he didn't do it by reacting to the things that were out here. He did it first and foremost by getting in touch with his own spiritual source every morning, doing his spiritual practices. He never failed. He spent his time getting centered. And you say, how do I do that? Take your daily word and work with it a little deeper. Take some time to go into quiet. Use your affirmations. Don't just plaster them on you like a bumper sticker. Move with them. Remember, remind yourself that the divine order that you're establishing is already there. You just have to get into alignment with it. And Gandhi used to say that people would say to him, when he would act, they'd say, you shouldn't be acting. Or when he said, even my own intellect would do that. I would say, this doesn't make sense. But I would act anyway because it was moving through me. He was in that divine order that already existed. Or other times he would hold back, and everybody was telling me, he said, that I'm supposed to do this or do that, and it was no, hold your peace. And when do you know when to do what? In the words of Ecclesiastes, to everything there is a season and there's a time for every purpose under heaven. Or the great mystic Kenny Rogers said, know when to hold them, when to fold them. How do you know the timing? It's about divine timing. How do you know when to act, when to hold back? And there's a part of you that already knows. And it's that part that you can get in touch with when you let go of judgment. Judgment is what? It is saying that this is real. This is more real than this. But remember what Jesus said, greater is the one in me than the one that's in the world. And the idea is that the within you is already in alignment with that divine order if you call forth that power. But you've got to take it and work with it and catch the wave. My son said that he learned how to sail the other day on Lake Michigan, and he said, I caught the sweet spot, Dad. I said, what's that? He said, that's where you're not too much this way or too much that way, and then you get the wind, and then you can go. And it reminded me of the one time in my life that I ever surfed. How many people here have ever surfed? Raise your hand. Oh, there's a lot of surfers in this room. See, the first service, they didn't surf much. I don't know what they did, but they didn't surf. But I only surfed once in my life. Now, I did a lot of boogie boarding, which you lie down, bodyboarding, boogie boarding, which I got as much fun out of, and I found that you couldn't fall off the board because you're already lying down on it, so it was great for me. But the one time when I was in Hawaii, I was on Waikiki Beach, and somebody told me, if you give this guy over here, he's an older guy, $10, he'll teach you how to surf. And I thought, well, okay, sure, why not? He had a big old board with him. I gave him $10, and I had a friend who was listening to him ridiculed me as I was up there, because every single time that I would get on a wave would come, I would paddle like crazy, and I'd get ahead of the wave, and it would just go, it would be behind me. So I'd get ahead of the wave. And the next time I would wait, I think, okay, I gotta wait. And I'd wait, and I'd wait, and I'd wait, and I'd wait, and it would go right by me. I would get behind the wave. So I found out that getting ahead of the wave didn't work, getting behind the wave didn't work, but finally, I got to the point where, and this is how your practices are about practicing, and you aren't going to do it right every time, but it's like sowing, and you'll reap later. It's like your practices get you up to speed, and so I finally I was paddling, and I caught the wave, and I stood up on it, and I went to the shore like this, and he said to my friend, he surfed like an Egyptian. But when I was deposited right on the shore, I never surfed again. I figured I'd done it. It was perfect. I'm done. But what I learned out of this is that there is a timing, a divine timing in this. Now, how do we get ahead of the wave? How do you get ahead of the wave in your life? By forcing your will, by pushing, by grasp. It's futuring. So imagine catching the wave is the now, being in that perfect sweet spot of the now moment. But you get ahead of the wave, you're futuring. I'm going to make this happen. Have you ever done that? Divine order is now established. I'm going to make that divine order happen right now. You ever do that? Yeah, and that's getting ahead of the wave, pushing your will. In Jesus' disciples, that's represented by Judas. He was always pushing him to go into Jerusalem so that he could take over and set up a theocracy and take charge of everything, all from the wielding of power, forcing the will, the personal will. So this is the side of us, that bad advice that we get, as Judas gave bad advice to Jesus, that we should get ahead of things and force our personal will. But then there's another extreme represented by Peter. And Peter was always saying, I don't think we should go. No. Right up the very end. No, let's not do it. No. That's that part that's stuck in the fears of the past. Fears of the past. I'm going to shrink from it. What did T. Boone Pickens, he called it? Ready, aim. You're never quite willing to engage with it because you're afraid. You're holding back. And there's that aspect of you represented by Peter that is giving you bad advice, that's telling you to just hold back out of fear and shrink back out of fear. It's safe, I'm comfortable. Don't ask me to change. I'm not going into Jerusalem. I'm not going to do it. And then there's a third character, and who is that? It's Jesus, the Christ in you, the spiritual nature of your beingness that is in the middle, that is able to catch that wave, that's in the now moment, not stuck in the past out of fear, not trying to push ahead into the future out of some kind of personal will or self-aggrandizement, but being in that now moment experience. To mix my religious metaphors, it's what the Buddha called the middle way, the middle path. It's neither this way nor that way. It's just right in the middle. It's the sweet spot. I get into the sweet spot and I move. Together? I get into the sweet spot and I move. And what is it you move with? The already existing implicate order, the inner order that already exists. That wave's there. You've got to catch it. And you say, but what happens when I miss a wave? You're going to miss a wave. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to miss windows of opportunity in your life. It's just part of learning. It's called practice. Your spiritual practice is about practicing, and you got to practice it because you don't already know how to do it. So when you catch the wave, you might miss the wave, you might be ahead of it, you might be behind it, but just forgive yourself. Think about a time in your life where you think, oh, I missed that opportunity. Nothing is lost in spirit. Together, nothing is lost in spirit. Every one of those experiences is there to bring and grow and teach you, and it's not lost. It's like sowing. You've been sowing. The seeds haven't come up yet. It's that part of yourself that is practicing, and you'll get it right. You'll get it right, but you just, okay, I'm going to try it again. And don't judge yourself. Judging yourself again is making an emotion-backed demand based upon appearances. Judging yourself as saying, oh, it's not happening in the way that I expected it, I'm just going to give up. That's Peter. Or, oh, it's not happening in the way I expected, and I'm just going to charge ahead and force it. That's Judas. You got to be in that middle way and catch the wave. Because why? Because there is a rhythm, an order, a flow to life that you can catch. It's already there. You just have to get into alignment with it. And you do that through your daily spiritual practices, through keeping your lamps trimmed and burning, keeping your light up, keeping yourself aware. And when you look at the world and you say, what am I going to do with this? I don't like this. Do like Gandhi, who had pretty good results, I would say. And establish your alignment with divine order in your spiritual practices first, and then follow the guidance that comes next. As you know, I'm retiring October 1st, and I didn't expect that. And if you'd asked me May 15th, I would have said, even though I'm going to be 67 next month, I still had no intention or any idea I would do anything like that. And I found, I heard, it was kind of like, I'm not saying I'm like Gandhi, but it reminds me of what Gandhi said, where I came out of the meditation meeting that I'm involved in up there in Tarpon Springs, and on the way out I said, I could retire this week. I could move up here. And then I was like, where'd that come from? And I figured, never mind. Within 5 days, it all fell into place. It was like my soul spoke, and then I listened to it. Now, sometimes people hand you books. Sometimes you'll just wake up in the middle of the night, and you'll know it's the right thing. Sometimes it is the still small voice. Sometimes it just makes perfect sense where it didn't make sense yesterday. We've all had this implicate order come forth into our awareness, and we're a part of it. We're a part of it. You are part of the rhythm of life. You are dancing with God. It is a natural part of you. There's a wonderful story I was reading, written by a PhD educator who travels the country, and she shows videos of children on the playground during recess. And what she points out to the people is something she discovered accidentally, that the children, in every case of the ones that she videoed, the children who are playing on one edge of the playground are doing it in rhythm with the ones clear on the other end that have no knowledge of what the other ones are doing. Does that make sense? Is this such an interesting concept? There's a rhythm. She said she noticed this as she was measuring something else. She was doing some study of play and children or something. And she went, wait a minute. This kid's going like this, and this kid's going like, and these kids over here, and they're all in rhythm. And she realized, my gosh, and she even could find some music that would fit these different ones, and she would play the music and show it to these educators and say, there is a deeper order in play. There's a deeper order. And remember, Jesus said, you must become as a child to enter the kingdom, which is that spirit of play. What does a child do? A child plays. So there is that part of you that when you engage with it, with a playful heart, with a playful nature, is dancing in the rhythm of life in perfect order. She said, though, that a lot of these educators she talked to couldn't understand a word she was saying. Maybe that's happening here today. I don't know. But she said that, but she said that they would come up to her and say, well, how do they hear that music? It's like, well, it's inside of them. What? What are you talking about? They couldn't understand that there is an invisible something. We call it divine order. And you can dance with it. You can move with it. You think, oh, that's for people who are more spiritual than me. No! It's always happening. You can be in touch with it. You can dance with the rhythm of the universe. It is constantly, it's constantly beating. The evidence for it is the beating of your heart. Your heart is so powerful and it's constantly beating. Hearts are interesting. Hearts are fascinating. I could tell you all this scientific stuff about hearts, but one thing I found that was very interesting is that when they would take individual heart cells, every individual heart cell beats. Every single one of them visibly beats. But if you take a bunch of heart cells from different animals and you put them on a little plate, they beat at different rhythms. They beat out of order, all unsynchronized. But if you put them together and clump them together, they beat as one. They align with each other. You are that pacer cell in the heart of humanity, and you got to keep your light up. You got to keep your practices going, because the rest of humanity is wanting to be in alignment with you. That's more important and more powerful than any physical action you can take. Now, I had somebody ask me last week in this talk, well, you telling me not to take action? The world needs my action. Right, but it doesn't need your reaction out here. This out here is not what's real. This is what's real, and Gandhi proved that if you live from this, then when you take action, it will mean something. It will make a difference, and it is something that comes from your inner purpose, and you're in alignment with the highest good. And as he said, sometimes it doesn't make any sense. Me, I didn't have any idea. If you'd asked me May 15th, I would have thought I would have been retiring 10 years from now. There was no way I would want to do that. But it came out of me, and I listened to it. There's a rhythm in you that is expressing. That doesn't mean you're supposed to do something that is dramatic or drastic, but it means that everything in your life that you're working towards, there is an order, and it will come forth. And your spiritual practices are sowing the seeds that you are going to reap down the road. Another analogy for that is and I've shared this before, is priming a pump. When I was working at my dad's hardware store when I was 11, 12 years old, I had kind of scrawny arms, and he would make me pump the paint thinner that was in the tanks under the hardware store into these glass wine jugs that we would clean out. Imagine that, they put paint thinner in glass, but it was legal in those days. And I would do that, but just before it would gush out, nothing would come. I would do that, it would get harder and harder and harder. And you would think you'd want to give up. You'd say, well, this is getting too hard. But that's always a sign that it's going to let loose, and then it would be easy and it would manifest. In my looking for an apartment, a couple days ago, there's this one, and it looked good, but there was kind of weird gooey stuff on the floor and some stuff hanging from the ceiling. It's like, no, that's not quite it. And there was another one, and it was okay, but I'm not going to talk to you about the shower. And, it's like, and that's what Catherine Ponder calls signs of land. Remember Catherine Ponder, this prosperity writer? And she says signs of land are, in the old days on the high seas, they'd say, land ho! They think they found their destination, but it wasn't. It was seaweed. But seaweed is always near the land. It's signs of land, so it's not what you wanted. Have you ever noticed if you're looking for a job or a house or any manifestation in your life, that before it shows up, as they say, the darkness is before the dawn, that's when things are kind of in Devor and Eider. They're kind of out of whack, but it's a sign of land. It's like, this isn't it, but it's a sign that it's coming. And so if you're praying about something and it's not manifesting exactly the way you want it, it's signs of land. It may be signs of land, and you just kind of stay with it. You keep working with it. You keep moving with it, and it is in divine order, even though that divine order hasn't shown up yet, but you got to let go of your judgments of the way it looks. That emotion back demand that it be this way. You can't get out in front of it too far and force your will in the future. You can't stay behind it out of fear like Peter and want to hang back. In the past, you want to catch that sweet spot and just keep working with it and practicing with it, and when the time is right, it moves forth. So let's close our eyes and just get in alignment with that sweet spot, that divine order, and know that it isn't about any of the conditions that are out here. It's about the conditions that are within. Divine order is already established. My job is to get into alignment with it. Divine order is already established, and my job is to give my consent and my permission to be in the flow of it. My heart is beating with all the hearts in the universe, with the great heart of God. I am dancing in the divine dance. And as I let that inner child out, that playful attitude that lets go into the experience, I release the idea that I'm forcing divine order on things. Instead, divine order is already established, and I am showing up in it. Divine order is already established. Thank you, dear God. And so it is. Amen.